Get Undressed. Hi everyone and welcome to a new episode of Get Undressed. Today I'm in London and I'm recording an episode with the amazing Ed who created Arctic Army.
Hello.
Hi. I'm really excited to have you on the
I'm
podcast.
excited. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for coming.
No, it's a pleasure. Anytime.
You know, it's really weird how fashion goes, because I found out about your brand through, I think, a friend of yours who is a hairstylist, Chris. And
Chris. Was it Chris Long?
yes, ages ago. And then I
yes.
was like, this brand is iconic. And you sent something for one of my clients. And then fast forward, I was in the showroom doing a press day and the brand is here. And I'm like, I really want to get him on the podcast. And they were like, say no more. He's in the building.
Yeah, they summoned me upstairs and then the rest is history.
So I want to start with the basics.
Sure.
How did you get into fashion, and how from fashion did you get into the idea of having a brand?
So I got into fashion from a young age. I used to ask my grandmother if I could take clothes out of her wardrobe and redesign them and stick gems on them and feathers and crystals and glue them and all sorts of things. So it was obviously in there as a child.
Were you telling her your clothes are boring, I'm going to make them better? Or?
No, not at all. I was rummaging around trying to find like a net skirt or some sort of anything that was, especially those, you know, those sequined kind of like 80s things. They were my favorite in particular because they were extremely sparkly. So anything sparkly I was well into. So I've always had a thing for costume and clothes and, you know, anything sparkly. So when I finished school, I wanted to do something in costume, and it just happened organically that I started working for a costume company and designing. I didn't start designing, but I started helping with Latin ballroom freestyle costumes. So, you know, Latin ballroom, like Strictly type costume. So I did that and ended up doing that for about 15 years. And then I worked my way up and became just below the creative director as like the head designer or one of the head designers. And I was doing, you know, ostrich feather, Swarovski crystal, one-off pieces and gowns. It was quite a big brand at the time in ballroom and Latin.
What was the brand?
It was called Stoned.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of kids costume as well for like mini Strictly ballroom type stuff. And that was kind of where it started. And then organically from there, you know, I wanted to go into fashion, and it just never really happened. And it was only about 4 or 5 years ago that my then boss was like, you know, why don't you do something and we can, you know, springboard off of the existing customer base of the costumes, and, you know, we can offer a product that we can do at events and, you know, the ballroom dancing festivals we do, Blackwell Tower and things like that. So we came up with Arctic Army together, and it kind of went from there. It started off as like a side hustle, and then it kind of grew quite serious.
Quite quickly.
Yeah. It never intended to be quickly. It was kind of like a bit of like substitute the income kind of vibe. Yeah. And then, you know, the first weekend we did the coats, we just found a small independent supplier. We basically added our branding to things that already existed at the beginning. This is right at the beginning. And I think we sold like 50 or 60 coats in one weekend. And
so you just you show up to the event and you're like, here are my coats. Yeah. Do you want to buy them? And that's a ballroom event that has literally nothing to do with outerwear, because it's quite the opposite. And people go like, I'll buy it.
Nuts. We were putting them out. I mean, it was just before Christmas as well. So there was that kind of like, the kind of customers that we had were very much all about their kids. It was all about looking the best and having the best costume and the sparkliest.
It's very competitive.
Very competitive. Yeah. It's very much like you see in these TV programs like Baby Ballroom.
I love it. I love this.
Bows in the hair and like, you know, little kids. And we did like baby pink fur trims and, you know, all like fluffy, cute colors and pastel colors. And it just went boom. Like we couldn't make enough of them. We sold about 50 or 60 in the first weekend. Then we were taking orders every day for more and more and more. And we were like, hang on a minute. I think we might be on something here. And then it kind of grew from there. And it wasn't until we started a website. And
you didn't even have a website.
We didn't even have a
beginning.
website. No, we were selling them over Instagram DMs, over the phone, at events.
Did you have like a crazy following on Instagram at the time?
Nothing, zero.
So it's just like it literally went viral because of the product.
I think the viral thing came later, but it was the kind of already existing base of people that we had who were already fans of the other brand that helped us start that company, helped us start that company. And then very quickly we moved away from that, and we thought, if we want this to be more for the general public, it needs to be a little bit more toned down. Maybe we don't need to do as much, pink and pastel, and we need to think what the general public would want rather than just this small group of people. Which is when we redesigned the logo, we made it a bit more sleeker.
That's when I found out about the brand.
Yes, yeah. And in the early stages, we were then finding suppliers and things like that. We started the website, and it just went from boom to super boom. With the help of Instagram, we were doing loads of gifting. We were sending it to everyone and anybody at that point. We weren't, it still hadn't sunk in that this could be a proper business and that it was going to be real. It was just kind of like, wow, this is just happening. And, I never set out going, I want to be the next Moncler. I want to be the next, Moose Knuckle or, whatever. It happened organically, purely organically. And it wasn't until quite far along that I thought, hang on, we need to start taking this seriously and treating it like an actual business and, start putting some, some sort of infrastructure in place, and getting some, a warehouse, or not a warehouse, or just a small space, which we started off with. It was an old disability centre where it sold like ride-on mopeds and bikes and stuff on the high street in like near Bristol, and we just blanked the windows out. It was cheap as chips, and we started hustling really. It was hustling.
Was it just the two of you?
It was me and my business partner, and then my boyfriend, he came in and started helping out. Then we hired somebody to do social media part-time, and it just kind of happened like that. Then my mum would help out. My mum is an entrepreneur. She's had her own businesses for years. She retired, and then once she'd retired, it was quite good having someone on board who had run businesses, and she was like
She almost the advisor,
the advisor, yeah, the one who was like, you shouldn't really be buying, stupid
don't buy
things.
that bag.
You can't buy shoes on the company card. Things like that, which I didn't know about.
Yeah.
I didn't even know when I started that when you get to a certain point, you have to pay VAT.
I found out the hard way.
Yes, I did too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to backdate it, and then we were like, nobody
no one tells you about that.
No
one tells you about that. I went to fashion school and no one told me what it's like to start a business or what it's like to hire people, and basically nothing. They told me you're going to be the king of the world, and then as long as you can do a great design. And then I came out and I was like, you could do the best design in the world, but if you don't have the right management skills and business skills, then your product will never be seen. Agreed.
And I think I've learned so much because, as much as the brand has become a great success, I have had to learn the hard way with a lot of things, whether it be that or whether it be, all sorts of things. I can't think of examples right now, but, I've made so many mistakes, so many mistakes.
Same.
But
you learn from the mistakes.
Learn from the mistakes. Yeah, completely. And I think that's the only way to do it, because so many people told me not to do things, and I was just like, I know better. I know better. Shut up. Especially my mum, my poor mum.
Yeah.
And I just like, shut up.
Yeah, and then you're like, you were right, but don't tell me I told you so, because I don't want to hear it. The fact that I realize it is enough. Yeah.
And then eventually you're like, okay, you're right.
And then you're like, Mom, can I ask you?
Yeah, completely.
And so why did you think of doing outerwear?
Well, I think it was around the time when, the kind of Mr. and Mrs. Italy parkas were like a big thing.
Yeah.
And they had like the big colourful fur trims. I wanted one of those so badly. And they were like £3,000. And I was like, there's no way I can afford a £3,000 parka jacket. but I wish there was. So, you know, we talked about it and we were like, what could we do something where we could do an affordable version where maybe the trim was real fur and the inside was faux fur, you know, and it looks and feels the same. Well, you're getting a lot of bang for your buck.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was where it came from. And again, it's one of those things, everybody needs a coat.
So it really is, you thought about a product that you would want to have and that you couldn't have.
Yep,
and
correct.
Is that product something that is useful in everyday life and that people would be able to buy no matter what the background, the country?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we actually did very well at the beginning in all of the countries in Europe. Like, it was huge in Germany, especially. Like, I think that was what took us to the next level again, is when we started promoting on Instagram and Facebook adverts, and we could reach out to, you know, Italy, France, where, you know, that style of parka is very popular.
In France, I know no one that doesn't have that style of parka.
Agreed.
And it's literally from, you know, when you are a baby and a kid, your parent get it for you, and then through your teens, you get one because it's fashionable and, you know, and then you get one later because you're like, fuck it, I'm cold and I want to be comfortable. And then it's kind of something that has got into the fashion world where it's very accepted. You don't need to just be wearing like a long normal coat. You can wear something a bit crazier.
Yeah, agreed. And I think it wasn't till later on they got a little less crazy.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't till I'm more for crazy. Like, my dress sense as a kid has always been, or as a teenager, was always more is more. Yeah, less is poor.
Less is poor. I love
less
that.
Less is poor. Yeah, so that was kind of my motto. But then what I realized, it took a long time. Again, this is another one of my mistakes. I realized that, you know, the badge doesn't have to be this big. You know, the badge, over time, the badge has got smaller and the sales have gone up, you know, and I'm like, oh, maybe not everybody wants like a saucepan size badge on their arm. And, you know, the fur has always been huge, which people seem to love. So we've always kept that the same. But it's always been about more is more. Whereas now we've realized that, you know, to get to that point where you're super successful and you have a lot of commercial presence across, sorry, I've lost my train of thought there.
To get super successful and to get a lot of commercial presence, like basically it's like adapting the brand. You need
to adapt yourself and you can't just do what you like. Of course, you can do a couple of styles that are a bit crazy, which in reality nobody really buys.
But it's good for editorials.
But it's good for editorials. You know, we used to do the big black and white stripy coats, the wraparound ones, which, you know, we had, maybe was it Kris Jenner? Kourtney Kardashian wearing them. You know, we've done all sorts of editorial stuff. We also used to combine the idea of the dance costumes and the coats, and we did some Swarovski crystal ones, which were like one-off pieces, and we did them for like Becky G. She wore it in her Dollar music video that got over 1 billion streams.
Do you see something when your piece is worn into something that goes as mainstream and as viral? Do you see, you know, a comeback in sales? And do you really see like your sales booming like that? Or you see your sales booming more if, like, let's say a Molly May wears it?
Completely.
Really?
Yeah. So we did Saweetie's video Tap In. She wore a pink custom piece.
That was iconic.
Yeah, completely Swarovski crystals. We've done Ashanti. Kris Jenner's worn stuff. There was no uplift really in sales. But yeah, you get certain people, certain influencers who are more relatable, and it goes boom, and you get, you know, you can see the sales completely like
it's
straight
away,
more organic. Yeah, he needs to be organic. For those days of paying somebody to wear a jacket and doing a post, and the sales going ching 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 ching, really, it just doesn't happen anymore.
You don't pay people to wear the jacket.
We've never paid anyone. We did it once, and it didn't work.
And do you think it didn't work because people could see it was a commercial?
Completely. #ad. That's not how that's not how people want to buy things anymore, because it's so saturated. Like, I see something and it's #ad. I'm just like,
You want to be influenced by something that's natural.
I want someone to wear it. I'd rather they wore it and didn't tag it organically for a week, you know, on their stories, and people recognize that logo and then they go, what's this? We've seen it in, and it takes a while for that to happen. You know, it takes years. repetitive, people wearing it. You know, we had a lot of success with grime music stars. And it wasn't till I'd been in situations where I was in flannels, for example, when we did the launch party, and one of the guys on the floor was like, mate, your brand's sick. I've seen it on Bugsy Malone, and I've seen it on, you know, all these guys on Mist, and I've seen it in this video and this video. And people do take notice of it. Like, I wouldn't think that people put it together.
Yeah.
But it takes a while of seeing it in these different music videos.
It's the repetition.
One picture, unauthentic post that's like, buy this, doesn't work anymore. You know, it needs authentic, repetitive, it needs time. You know, people need to see it regularly for a long time. And I feel like that's the only way nowadays.
And do you think, so obviously you said you were doing a lot of gifting at the time. Do you think the gifting helped getting the brand out? Or do you think there's a balance of, well, actually we lost a lot of money doing a lot of gifting and we didn't necessarily see a lot of, you know, how do you say, like, feedback from it?
Return on investment.
Or do you think like the whole gifting thing is giving you a great return on investment?
I think the gifting thing was what caused us to become successful at the beginning. Whether nowadays it is as good, but obviously you have to remember, you know, product that we it would be a lot more expensive for me to pay someone. You know, some of these influencers who contact me, they want, you know, tens of thousands of pounds to do one reel, which, you know, good on them. I'm not knocking that. That's good, but not for you. But not for me. You know, it doesn't work. We will not get that sale. We will not get that back in sales. However, for me to give away a coat, which, you know, the cost price of it isn't what the retail price is, it's a lot more. Even if I have to give away 20 coats and I get 3 back, I'm still saving, you know, thousands of pounds. So it works a lot better. And I feel like we don't put pressure on anyone to post. We don't say, you know, if you have this, you have to do this, you have to do that. We offer it as a gift. And if they choose to post it, that's great. That's, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in, you know, people have got to pay their bills. You know, it's influencers, it's their job. If they want the coat organically and they like the brand, then by all means take a coat and enjoy it. But we're not asking anything from you. We'd appreciate your support. And in return, you know, we support those people every year. We give them gifting. We invite them to our events. You know, we make them part of the family. Yeah, they get exposure from it as well. Yeah. And, you know, we support smaller influencers. You know, they contact us and ask for gifting. We'd love to help grow, and people grow with us as like a community. Do you know what I mean?
That's great. And I think it's being part of a community is also something that's really important for people, and you want to feel like you belong to something.
Agreed. Yeah. Agreed.
Controversial question, but obviously you've had a lot of celebrities wear your brand. Is there a moment in the brand story where you saw people wearing it and you thought, I really wish you were not wearing it?
Yes. I'm not going to say any names.
No.
Though,
but when that happens, so how do you deal with it?
Look, I'm not taking myself super seriously. I realized, you know, the brand is not Chanel. So I realized that, you know, our product's for everyone. Like, I'm happy that people are wearing it. There's certain people I'm a bit like, oh, you know, certain like low budget reality stars who are like, you know, but I also appreciate them supporting us as a customer. And I feel like the brand is for everyone. So I'm not too precious about, you know, who's wearing it. I obviously personally inside, you're like,
but you detach yourself from that.
You have to. That's what I've learned from being in business. I was very emotional for a long time with the brand. I'd become probably too intertwined with it, especially along the beginning when we kind of went boom. And then, you know, when you go boom, with that growth comes boom, you have to buy more stock, which means you have no money, and, you know, you're turning over millions of pounds and you've never got any money, and you just end up in this cycle of like stress where you're like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that?
I think the bigger you become, the more stress there is. And sometimes people don't realize that it's not because a brand is turning over millions that it's easy. No. I think on the contrary, it gets harder and harder when you're just selling on markets. Then you have some sort of control over your your quantities and your customers and all of that. And then when you start selling, even when you start selling in department stores, this is a nightmare.
Completely. I mean, we, in our first wholesale season, we ended up in Harrods, Selfridges, Harvey Nichols and Flannels.
That's a lot for one
season. And the Flannels in particular, obviously they've got 50 plus stores. So that one order was, doubled our revenue nearly. It was massive. So to support that, we had to...
You didn't sleep for 6 months?
More than 6 months. To be honest with you, I've had on the mental health conversation is quite important here. I used to listen to brand owners say, it's really stressful. It's a roller coaster, but it wasn't till I was in it that I realized that you never realize how far you come. You always feel like
it's never enough.
It's never enough. And I used to be like, oh, poor you, boo-hoo, the stress of the success of something. But as a result, it's led me to have massive anxiety. I take medication for it now, which I'm proud to say it really changed my life. I suffer with ADHD. But I've got ADHD and I'm very dyslexic as well. So I find every situation is also more intense.
Yeah.
And I think the combination of that with the stress of the business for me was,
it's a recipe for disaster.
Completely. Yeah, completely. There were times when I wouldn't get out of bed for days and on end. It was very stressful.
I think also there's this thing of when you start being successful and you've obviously waited like your whole, childhood and then teenage years to become successful, and then one day you suddenly like it starts working out and like it just booms. No one tells you about the fact that the moment it booms, instead of being like, fuck yeah, I've made it, you're like, what now? I'm a total failure if it doesn't go like up. And no one tells you about the fact that you can never complain. So if you say, oh, I'm so tired, they're like,
this is part of it.
You shouldn't complain. It's part of it. And then if you're like, I feel really stressed, they're like, well, then quit your job. Yeah. It's kind of like, no one ever really thinks about that side of it or even when you're in school. Like, I don't know about you, but no one ever told me when I would start working as a stylist that you need to make some time for yourself and your private life. And that when you're going to start traveling a lot, you need to take like melatonin, I think you say in English.
Melatonin, yeah.
So when you're jet lagged, you're not so jet lagged, so it doesn't, affects you too much.
Agreed.
And just like really stupid stuff like that, where eventually it catches up with you so fast that you're like, hold on a minute, what's happening to me? Like everything I've ever wanted is happening right now, and I'm not enjoying it. I'm dreading it. I don't want to get out of bed. I feel really depressed and I don't understand why.
Yeah, completely. My biggest fear was my phone, because I knew that I would go to bed and I'd be like, oh God, it's time for bed. Thank God I can put it on airplane mode. No one's going to send me a message that's going to give me.
But then in the morning,
you're like, I've got to turn it on now. And I used to be like, I just can't do it. I cannot turn on that phone because I know I'm going to have a message from, we were like suppliers or something saying, you need to pay for this now. We're not sending this until you pay this. You're like,
it's a vicious
It's
circle.
like a circle, and then you're just like a nervous wreck. Yeah. It's very stressful. It's very stressful.
And how did you find support?
So in the end, we found great support. We took investment in from an amazing company called For Marketing, and they helped with our distribution. We had an injection of knowledge, that I had never experienced, of a huge corporation. And we got on board with them. They did our distribution for us, and then later became, partners in Arctic Army. And, they took us to the next level, really. And I think that's how we kind of went from being an independent brand. Like we had an office in Bristol, with that small office. Later on from that, we got a warehouse, 4,000 square foot. We did it all up. We had distribution center there. We had a studio, photography studio in the house, offices. So we were doing really well. They came on board. They supported us. We got investment from them. They knew all about how to do the distribution, and even things like when you do a massive order. I remember our first big order that we did. of stock, or like a serious order, like, and we had this warehouse and we were waiting for the lorries to arrive who were bringing the thing. And I was thinking it was going to be like just like a normal, like, anyway, 2 massive 10-ton, like super huge lorries.
But could they actually park in front?
Yeah, because it was a warehouse.
Okay.
But there was like 4 of us.
Yeah,
and
so
it was
you
on
need to
pallets,
load it.
And it was like, it took us like 2-3 hours to do half a truck.
Yeah.
It was like, it was just never ending. And like, just physically see that amount of stock in the flesh, I was like, boom, like, how can we process all this? Like, we didn't have the infrastructure. I didn't have the knowledge to know that, that many, outerwear is big.
Yeah. And it's heavy.
It's heavy. You can only get 5 pieces in a box.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
When you're ordering thousands of pieces, you've got multiple lorries and tons of clothes. Yeah. And, it's hard to compute.
I can see you in the middle of the boxes like, oh no.
Yeah. I was like pulling my hair out.
That's the moment where you go, hello, Mom.
Yeah. Oh, she was there, don't you worry. She's like the head of the ticking off list. She's like, tick, tick. Yeah. So that was interesting, to say the least. But, we got the infrastructure from becoming part of a bigger organization. It helped us. We can use their legal team and, things like, things I hadn't done, like I trademarked it, but not in every country around the world. You don't think you have to do that, but you do, because you don't want somebody.
Have you had issues like that where you wake up one morning and you see one of your product that is not your product? Correct. And that's a counterfeit?
Yeah, we have had that. We had a website that was just stealing our pictures and, doing adverts.
Iconic.
For like a quarter of but the jackets were like $29.99. So I know that they're going to order them and you're not going to get anything at all.
Did people get in touch with you being like, is that the real jacket? Or I ordered the jacket, yes, it arrived and it's not good. Yes. And you're like, you did not order it from me.
You didn't order it from me. Yeah, that has happened. Yeah, that has happened a lot. More towards the beginning, when we were kind of just, winging it. But yeah, latterly not so much. But yeah, that was another learning curve. You need to do your IP around the world rather than just in the UK, which costs a hell of a lot of money. But I didn't realize.
Yeah,
you need
so expensive.
Every country, you have to do it, and you have to deal directly with that country. There's not just like one website where you can just do it all online. No,
it's
each
one
country,
after the other.
Yeah, it's one after the other. Multiple people. You need like a legal team of people
and translate.
Need to translate it all. And what we actually discovered is when we were copywriting it, people had tried to copyright the name in other countries. So
I've had that with the podcast and my own name, and I was like, so I need to buy my name back for a website,
and you have to argue with them for like ages.
And you're like, but it's me.
It's my name. You can't do that. And there's certain countries and they're just like they don't care.
And do you feel like, so obviously this, I think it's a very inspirational story. You start a brand and it booms, and then suddenly it puts you on the map in the world of fashion. How is that when you suddenly arrive in a world, because you come from the ballroom, which is very different, and then all of a sudden you are in a world that's it's very snobby, let's face it.
Totally, yeah. I've always been quite I've always been in London a lot, so I've got a lot of friends in the industry, so I've always been around it. I've always been at the parties and doing things like that, so I've always had that sort of way that connection with people. From a young age, I was in London going to, I used to go to Circus and, all of the clubs. And
did these people that you had from a young age support the brand?
100%. Yeah. I've got some great friends who will buy from Harrods rather than buying, not friends that say, oh, can I have a discount?
Yeah.
Or, these are friends who go into Harrods and go, I bought an exclusive Harrods piece. Like,
that's amazing.
That's really, that means a lot to me. Like, I really appreciate that,
And I think it also means they understand
completely,
the hassle behind the job and what the price in a way reflects.
Agreed. Yeah, 100%. I think it's just I think you should always support your friends, and it doesn't have to be loud. You can support your friends by buying something or by listening to something or promoting something without them even asking you to do it, you know. And that's what I really appreciate that. And I have had that a lot. So I do appreciate my friends for that. Yeah, it's really nice. It is really nice. Obviously, you have the other side of it where some people don't do that, but whatever.
And so, I mean, I look at you and I see one of the first things I've seen when we met was you love jewelry.
I love jewelry, yes. I'm a jewelry.
And you love fashion.
I love jewelry. I love fashion.
And so how does your relationship through fashion changes once you have a brand? Because once you have a brand, you know how much it costs to do something. Completely. You realize about the quality and the finishing and all of that. Did that affect what you wear and how you shop?
100%. I used to be a fashion victim when it came to expensive t-shirts. Like I would go and spend a stupid amount of money on a Balenciaga t-shirt or, you know, a t-shirt like that. Whereas now I know from, I'm probably not allowed to say that, but I know that there's some brands, let's say some brands that make their products in the same factories as we use t-shirt wise. Of course they might use a different fabric, but I've been to the factories when they've been making the product and I've seen it with my eyes in the same, you know, dye wash house or whatever. And the t-shirt's going in the same drum as the t-shirt that I am making, but that t-shirt is like £800 for a t-shirt, and our t-shirts are like, you know, £90. So I know how much that t-shirt costs to make, and I'm like, there is no way
I'm gonna spend the money on
a t-shirt. No. It's just that for me is done. That whole expensive t-shirt with a print on, I'm over that. I like to invest in things that I'm going to wear for a long time, especially bags. Yeah, I love bags.
But a bag is an investment nowadays.
A bag is an investment. I love bags. I've always loved bags. Sorry, I've got hiccups. Yeah, bags are a big thing for me. And clothing wise, I'm a bit rubbish. Like I might buy, I don't mind buying really like I said, like a statement piece. Yeah. But then when it comes to like jeans, I just won't buy expensive jeans. I'll just buy a pair of Zara jeans. But then I'll mix with like, you know, a Zara t-shirt, Zara jeans, but then a really nice jacket, like, you know, a Valentino jacket or something, a hoodie. I love hoodies. I always feel the most comfortable in a hoodie, like a really nice Dior hoodie or something that's a real investment in like a towel fabric.
And
and it feels luxury and really thick and heavy. And, you know, I treat that hoodie like my special going out hoodie. I don't just wear it to like, you know, in the day. I would wear it to go for dinner rather than getting dressed up and wearing a shirt. Do you know what I mean? I would love to wear an expensive hoodie and a pair of, you know, Zara jeans. 100%. I would rather have one hoodie that I've spent a lot of money on that I look after and take it to the dry cleaners because I'm too scared to wash it. And I mean, that is for me, I'd rather spend investment pieces. But yeah, I'm really bad. Things like pants, I just have like a phobia of buying pants. I'm like, oh, I hate buying it. It's such a waste of money. But I'm like, oh, Dior hoodie, that's fine.
I love that. Yeah, I think it's that whole t-shirt thing. Actually, I can say it because when I was in fashion school, there was a teacher who was supposed to, she was teaching us about production. And so she was like, I'm going to give you a list of the brands that you should go shop at and a list of the brands that you shouldn't go shop at. And then you're going to go in those stores. You're going to have a look at the clothing, the finishing and everything. Look at the tag and see where it's made. And then at the next class, come back and where I'm going to explain to you why this is on the no list and why this is on the yes list. Number one at the time, I'm old, I'm 37. So we are talking about something that's like
same age as me,
17 years ago. Well, you know, I feel great. To be honest, I feel better now than I felt when I was 20. So, and she goes, number one on the list is Zadig and Voltaire.
Okay.
And at the time, Zadig and Voltaire in Paris was killing it. Everybody wanted to buy this brand. The marketing around it was absolutely amazing. The campaigns were amazing. You know, it was that time of those jerseys that had those like, actually those cashmere jerseys that had those wings and, you know, like they were a bit slouchy. They were amazing. And so we go there and she's like, you shouldn't buy there because the quality is not that. Blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Fast forward, I start working as a designer in Spain and I was doing bags and accessories for a brand called Gloria Ortiz, which was part of the Corte Inglés, which is kind of like,
I know, yeah.
You know, El Corte Inglés. So it's like this, to explain it a little bit in context, this is like a big Spanish multi-brand store where you can buy things from brands and then you can buy things from their own brand.
Like John Lewis, maybe.
Exactly. That's like the John Lewis of Spain.
Yeah.
Okay, so fast forward, I'm now a designer and I have to deal with production issues and I'm sending out my technical sketches to the factory in India and then my boss goes on a trip and she comes back with loads of stuff from them. And I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, so the scarves that we were making and that we were selling through Corte Inglés for like 25 quid, where they were actually doing scarves for Zadig and Voltaire and for other brands that were selling that at like 400 quid.
Yeah.
And she was like, it's the same, it's just a different tag. And that's when I clicked. I was like, okay, so not everything is actually worth the money. So when people tell you like, when people argue with you and say, well, Hermes is not worth the money or the Chanel bags are not worth the money, it's like there's actually a very quick and simple explanation of why that bag is worth the money that it's worth, because there really is someone sitting behind it doing it like hand by hand, But then all these things about the t-shirts, like it's so true. But those prices have gone up and up and up and up. And people are like, I'll buy it. And it's like, but why?
Yeah. But I mean, I think that's all. I think if people in brands were honest, I think probably when it comes to ready to wear, the only thing people really buy in any sort of volume is a t-shirt.
Yes.
Like, you know,
because it's also the entrance point to the brand. Like,
it is, yeah.
It's completely. Like the Gucci belt.
Completely. It's the Gucci belt of the ready to wear world. Yeah. So I understand why it's there. It has a purpose. But for me, like now I've seen behind the scenes, I just can't.
Yeah.
Different with bags, you know, there's an artisan behind that who's made it from start to finish. It's an investment. You know, you could keep it for 5 years.
Yeah, it's not the same.
It's not the same as a t-shirt. You wash it a few times and it's kind of like,
I love that.
You know, it's that misshapen and weird, but yeah.
Ed, it's been an absolute pleasure
Likewise,
to have you on the podcast.
Thank you very much.
And I'm pretty sure that people are going to be amazed at the story of the brand. And also, I think it's great to see a little bit of behind the scenes of a different way of growing as a brand.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you so much for coming and sharing your story about that.
Me. Thanks.
Can you tell us where can we find you? Where can we find the brand, social media, stores, everything?
Okay, so Arctic Army is a www.thearcticarmy.com. And we are in all of the flannel stores, online flannels. We're now in House of Fraser as well. And yeah, it's go check it out. Go check it out.
This is really exciting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you so much for taking time to listen to Get Undressed. I'm really excited about this episode and I think you will learn a lot from it as I did. You can find Get Undressed on Spotify, on YouTube, on Adele Canny Studio, and then you can find me on Instagram at Adele Canny. Please drop us a comment, let us know what you thought of the episode, and subscribe and follow. Thank you. Au revoir.